The annual Anderson Technology Gala was in full swing, crystal chandeliers casting a soft glow over Silicon Valley's elite as they mingled in their designer evening wear. I stood near one of the ornate pillars, watching my sister, Sophia, hold court among a group of admiring executives. "The merger will transform the entire industry," she announced, gesturing with her champagne flute. "Once Anderson Tech acquires Sterling Industries, we'll dominate the market. My team has been working on this deal for months." I took a sip of sparkling water, knowing exactly how long her team had actually worked on the merger, and exactly why it was doomed to fail tomorrow morning. "Emma." My mother's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "Stop lurking in the corners. It's embarrassing." I stepped forward, though I already knew the script. These galas always played out the same way, Sophia's achievements praised, while my career choices were subtly, or not so subtly, criticized. "Sophia was just telling us about the Sterling merger," my mother said proudly. 32 years old and already vice president of acquisitions. "We always knew she would do great things." "Unlike some people," my father added, giving me a pointed look. At 58, Richard Anderson still commanded attention in any room. His perfectly tailored tuxedo, however, couldn't quite hide the strain of recent months. Not that he'd ever admit Anderson Tech was struggling. "Emma's still doing that startup thing," Sophia said with a dismissive wave. "What is it again?" "Some kind of software company." "Nexus Technologies," I supplied quietly. "We develop advanced cybersecurity solutions." Sophia smirked. "Playing with computers in a garage somewhere." Of course, she had no idea that the garage was actually the top 5 floors of the city's most prestigious office building. But I kept that to myself, just as I had kept quiet about many things over the past 3 years. "I don't understand why you waste your time with that small business nonsense," my mother sighed, adjusting her diamond necklace. "You had such a promising future at Anderson Tech. You could have been in management by now." I suppressed a smile, thinking of the documents waiting in my office. Documents that revealed exactly who was really in management now. Speaking of management, my father interjected, "Sophia's merger deal is going to make history. The largest acquisition in Anderson Tech's history, nearly $4 billion. Contracts will be signed tomorrow morning." 10 a.m. sharp, Sophia added triumphantly. "Every major news outlet will be there." I checked my watch, an intentionally modest timepiece hiding the fact that I could buy every piece of jewelry in that ballroom without blinking. "I should head out. I have an early meeting tomorrow." Sophia's eyebrows arched. "Finally landed a real client." "Something like that." "Well, don't let us keep you from your little startup," she laughed. "Some of us have billion-dollar deals to close tomorrow." As I turned to leave, my mother's stage whisper carried behind me, "She just works at some startup. It's rather embarrassing, really." I made my way to the exit, nodding politely to executives who had no idea the woman they dismissed as Richard Anderson's other daughter was the anonymous CEO they'd been desperate to meet for months. Outside, my driver held the door of a modest sedan. Not the Bentley I usually used, but part of the careful image I maintained around my family. "Home, Miss Collins?" Thomas asked, using the name I was known by in the business world. "The office first," I replied, pulling out my phone. A message from Marcus, my COO, was waiting, all set for tomorrow. "Anderson Tech has no idea what's coming." I smiled, thinking of the plan that had been 3 years in the making. While my family dismissed me as a small-time entrepreneur, I'd built one of the most powerful cybersecurity firms in the world, Nexus Technologies, using shell companies to hide my identity as founder and CEO. Another buzz, a family group text from my mother. "Sophia's big day tomorrow. Everyone, be sure to watch the news coverage of the Sterling merger signing." I closed my eyes, remembering the day I'd walked away from Anderson Tech 3 years earlier. I had seen the warning signs even then: outdated systems, vulnerable infrastructure, reliance on old technology. I tried to convince them to modernize. "You're just jealous of your sister's success," my father had said. "Leave the real business decisions to those who understand them." So I did. I left, and built something better. What they didn't know was that Sterling Industries wasn't signing a merger tomorrow. They were signing a takeover, by me. Sterling, the company they thought was worth $4 billion, was actually worth less than half, thanks to critical vulnerabilities my team had uncovered. Vulnerabilities Anderson Tech had completely missed. At my real office, an entire top floor with panoramic city views, not the garage Sophia imagined, I reviewed the final documents. The reports are ready, my assistant Sarah said, handing me a folder. I scanned the contents, the security audit exposing Sterling's weaknesses, the true valuation showing Anderson Tech was overpaying, the proof that Sophia's brilliant strategy was built on a lie. Has the press release been prepared? I asked. Ready to go the moment you give the word, Sarah confirmed. Then, hesitantly, are you sure you want to do this? They are still your family. I walked to the window, gazing out at the city I had conquered. They stopped treating me like family the moment I chose my own path. Tomorrow, they'll learn that the quietest person in the room is often the one you should watch most carefully. Your sister's going to be humiliated, Sarah said softly. Yes, I agreed, thinking of years of condescension and mockery. But maybe that's what it takes to learn that success doesn't always look the way you expect it to. Another buzz. Marcus again. Board members confirmed for 9 a.m. Your family won't know what hit them. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. On the screen, Anderson Tech's fragile stock hovered on the edge. They were betting everything on this merger, stretching their resources to the breaking point. Tomorrow, they'd find out the truth. And tomorrow, the embarrassment of the family would own them all. Instead, they were about to discover that their salvation, or their downfall, rested in the hands of the daughter they had never taken seriously. The next morning, Anderson Tech's main conference room buzzed with anticipation. Camera crews from major networks set up their equipment, ready to broadcast what everyone assumed would be a straightforward merger signing. I stood in my private office across the street, watching the scene unfold through floor-to-ceiling windows. My Armani suit, a far cry from the intentionally modest clothes I wore to family gatherings, felt like armor. They're all there, Marcus reported, appearing at my door. Your sister's giving pre-signing interviews about her brilliant strategy. Your father's already made 3 speeches about the Anderson legacy. I smiled, adjusting my cuffs. And Sterling Industries CEO. Looking nervous. He knows what's coming. Of course he did. Weeks earlier, we had quietly informed Sterling's board about their security vulnerabilities, offering them a choice: face public exposure or agree to a takeover by Nexus Technologies. They had chosen survival. Miss Collins, Sarah said as she entered, holding a tablet. The press release is ready. And your mother just arrived at Anderson Tech, wearing her celebration pearls. I checked my watch. 9:45 a.m. time to go. Let's show my family what a little startup can do. The walk across the street felt like stepping between 2 worlds. In one, I was Emma Anderson, the disappointing daughter who just works at some startup. In the other, I was Catherine Collins, the enigmatic CEO of Nexus Technologies, one of the most powerful women in Silicon Valley. Through the glass lobby, I saw reporters clustered around Sophia as she confidently outlined her vision for the merged companies. My father stood nearby, basking in her spotlight, while my mother gazed at her with adoration. I stepped into the elevator, Marcus and Sarah flanking me with briefcases containing the real merger documents, the ones that would shatter my family's carefully constructed reality. At 9:55 a.m., the conference room doors opened. Conversations stopped instantly. Sophia's interview cut off mid-sentence as I walked in with my executive team. Emma? What are you doing here? She demanded. This is a private signing. I strode calmly to the head of the table, set down my briefcase, and looked around the room. Good morning, everyone. Shall we begin? Begin. My father rose, his face reddening. Emma, this is ridiculous. We're here for the Sterling merger signing. Where's Sterling's CEO? Mr. Chen won't be joining us, I replied, nodding to Sarah. She began handing folders to the stunned board members. He signed the final paperwork last night. That's impossible. Sophia's voice cracked. I have the merger agreement right here. That agreement is void, I said, watching the color drain from her face as she opened the folder. Sterling Industries accepted a different offer. My father clenched his fists. What are you talking about? Who could possibly? Nexus Technologies, I cut in smoothly. Or more specifically, me. The silence that followed was absolute. Cameras swung in my direction as reporters realized they were covering an entirely different story. "This is absurd," Sophia sputtered. "You run a small cybersecurity startup. You couldn't possibly afford." "That small startup is worth $12 billion, Sophia. We're the largest cybersecurity firm in the country." Gasps rippled around the room as I tapped the screen at the end of the table, revealing Nexus's true financial data. "While you were mocking my career choices, I built something you never saw coming." My mother's pearls clinked softly against the table as she sank into her chair. "But, you work from a tiny office downtown." "A front," I explained. "Nexus operates in 20 countries. We own this building. And as of last night, we own Sterling Industries." "Why?" my father demanded, his voice breaking. "Why go to all this trouble?" I met his eyes. 3 years ago, I warned you about Anderson Tech's outdated systems, its vulnerabilities. You told me to leave real business decisions to those who understood them. So I did." I gestured to Sarah, who passed out more documents. "Here's why Sterling agreed to our takeover: massive security breaches, outdated infrastructure, millions in hidden losses, all things your due diligence missed." Sophia's hands shook as she flipped through the pages. "This will destroy us," she whispered. "No," I corrected. "This will save you. Nexus isn't just taking over Sterling. We're offering to acquire Anderson Tech as well, at a fair price, before the market realizes how weak you really are." The board members leaned forward, suddenly interested. They had seen the decline but had been too afraid to challenge my family. "You can't do this," my father said hoarsely. "We're family." "Family?" I laughed softly. "Was it family when you dismissed every idea I offered? When you mocked my choices? When you called my work embarrassing?" I stood, surveying the room. "Anderson Tech has 12 hours to accept our offer. After that, we go public with everything we've found. The choice is yours." "Mom," Sophia pleaded, turning to her, "do something." But my mother sat frozen in shock, pearls trembling at her throat. "Last night at the gala," I said, my voice carrying through the silent room, "you called my job embarrassing. You assumed my silence meant weakness. Remember this moment: the daughter you dismissed as a failure now holds your company's fate in her hands." The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and legal formalities. Sophia was escorted from the room, her composure shattered. My father surrendered his company key card without meeting my eyes. My mother's pearls lay forgotten on the table. That evening, I stood in my Nexus office, watching the sunset paint the skyline. Marcus appeared with champagne, the same brand my family had toasted with the night before. "Was it worth it?" he asked. "All those years of hiding your success?" I thought of the condescension, the patronizing offers, the years of dismissal. Then I thought of the empire I had built, the thousands of employees who relied on me, the innovations that reshaped industries. "It wasn't about revenge," I said finally. "It was about proving that success doesn't always look the way they think it should. You don't have to follow their path to build something meaningful." The following year brought changes no one in my family could have predicted. Under Nexus's leadership, Anderson Tech transformed into a cutting-edge powerhouse. Sophia found a mid-level position elsewhere, perhaps a lesson in humility. My parents, their dynasty shattered, stopped hosting achievement-centered galas. As for me, I kept building, not to prove anything to them, but because I had discovered something they never understood. True success isn't about titles, family names, or merger headlines. It's about creating something meaningful, something that lasts. And when people ask about my path, I tell them this: sometimes the best response to being underestimated isn't proving them wrong right away. It's building something so magnificent that, by the time they realize their mistake, it's already far too late to matter.